Some objects are harmless trinkets. Others feel like they're waiting, like they've been passed down not to be admired, but to remind you of something you'd rather not know. For me, it was two porcelain bears. One white, one brown, their glassy eyes unblinking, their expressions disturbingly human. My mother loved them. I feared them. And when I was 16, I learned why. I never met my grandparents. They both passed before I was born. But their presence lived in our house through these two ornamental bears my mother displayed on the window ledge. They were supposed to be cute. They weren't. The longer you stared at them, the less they looked like toys and the more they looked like something alive, frozen mid-expression. Their pupils were pinpricks of black on wide pools of white, as if they were startled, or worse, as if they were waiting. I told my mom I didn't like them, but she only laughed. They watched over me when I was little. They'll watch over you too. I hoped she was wrong. Dee. One night, I had the dream. So vivid I can still recall every detail, every smell, every silence. I was lying on an operating table in a sterile, windowless room. The lights buzzed, but gave off no sound. My movements made no sound either. I tried to speak, but no words came out. And then I saw them. On the blood-red table across the room were the bears. The brown one, the white one, side by side, their porcelain faces gleaming in the cold light, their glassy eyes locked onto me, unblinking. My chest tightened. I felt like prey. Then, without warning, the white bear shifted. It slid to the very edge of the table. Time seemed to stretch thin. It leaned, and then fell. It hit the ground and shattered into 1,000 silent fragments. The soundlessness was worse than noise. It was as if the world itself had stopped acknowledging what was happening. That's when my heart lurched and I woke up. Except I didn't wake up in my bed. Oh. I opened my eyes to harsh fluorescent lights, a monitor beeping steadily beside me. My body felt heavy, stitched together. I was in a hospital. They told me I had been in a car crash. Rebecca, my girlfriend, had been in the car with me. So had her father, who had been drinking that night. We swerved into oncoming traffic. I survived. They didn't. I never remembered the crash itself, only the dream. The surgeon said they had almost lost me on the table. For a brief moment, I had been gone. Nay. Weeks later, when I was strong enough to return home, my mother brought me back. She fussed over me as we walked into the living room. That's when I saw it. On the window ledge stood only one bear, the brown one. The white one was gone. I froze. My voice cracked when I asked, "Where's the other one?" My mother looked uneasy. "Strangest thing," she said. "The night of your accident, the white bear fell and shattered on the floor. I heard the crash. It broke into pieces I couldn't put back together. I didn't want to upset you while you were recovering, so I never mentioned it." I couldn't breathe. My dream, the silent shattering, the blood-red table. I hadn't told her, and she hadn't told me. Nay. Later that night, I lay in bed, replaying it all. The operating table, the silence, the bear breaking apart. I wondered, Was it only a dream? Or had I seen something on the other side? Something in the space between life and death? My mother told me once, in a hushed voice, that her parents had believed the bears were protectors, vessels for their spirits. 2 bears, 2 lives, she whispered. 1 for you, 1 for the next time. I didn't want to believe her, but I could feel the brown bear's eyes watching me from its perch. And sometimes, I wondered if Rebecca's father saw something too in those final moments. If he saw eyes staring back at him in the dark, judgmental and unblinking. Now I'll see. I'm 26 now. The accident is 10 years behind me. I don't dream about the bears anymore, but I still feel the weight of that night. Survivor's guilt never fully leaves. Yet, the brown bear still sits in our living room, alone, silent, watching. Sometimes my mother and I joke about it. 1 spare life left, she says. But in the back of our minds, we don't laugh. Because when the house grows quiet and the shadows grow long, I sometimes swear I see its eyes glint in the dark, as if it's waiting for its turn to fall. There are videos on the internet you should never click on. Some are so vile, so sickening that once you've seen them, you can't go back. But the worst video I've ever watched wasn't online. It wasn't on some hidden forum or dark web archive. It came from a dusty attic, on a USB drive marked with 1 word: Hammerman. A friend of mine was helping clear out an old abandoned house on the edge of town. The place had been untouched for decades, its windows boarded, the walls rotten with damp. Most of what he found was junk, moldy furniture, waterlogged books, broken dishes. But in the attic he found something that didn't belong. Amid the cobwebs and dust lay a modern USB stick. On its surface, written in shaky black marker, was a single word. He should have left it there. We both should have. Instead, he pocketed it. Later that week, he called me over, saying he had something I needed to see. When I arrived, he already had his laptop set up. The USB was plugged in, the cursor hovering over a single file. A video. My buddy's hands were trembling. I don't think this is fake, he said. The file opened. Grainy footage appeared. It looked like it had been filmed on an old phone. The first clip was shaky, the camera bouncing with laughter from the man holding it. In the back of a pickup truck sat a masked man. A plain black ski mask, no eye holes stitched, only slits. In his gloved hands he toyed with a hammer, spinning it idly as if waiting for something. The men laughed and joked in a language I didn't recognize, harsh, guttural, maybe Russian. The truck screeched to a halt. The cameraman's laughter grew frantic. The masked man leapt out, hammer in hand, sprinting toward a lone figure walking down a dirt road. The victim barely had time to turn before the hammer came down with a wet, bone-cracking thud. He collapsed instantly, twitching, blood spilling into the dirt. The attackers howled with laughter as the masked man jogged back to the truck, climbing in casually as though nothing had happened. The video cut to black. Another clip. This time, a woman, middle-aged, wearing a scarf, walking alone through a wooded path. The same thing. The same hammer. The same sprint. The same sound, that sickening crack as iron met bone. She fell screaming, clutching her head until another blow silenced her. Then came more. Clip after clip. A young man outside a gas station. An old farmer on his bicycle. A teenage girl waiting at a bus stop. No. Each one the same pattern. The hammerman ambushes, strikes, flees, while the cameraman laughs breathlessly. But what made it worse were the little details. The way some victims looked directly into the camera, right before the blow, as if begging. The way the attackers spoke casually, as though killing was a joke. The way none of the victims screamed for long. These weren't actors. These weren't staged. They were real people. People who had simply woken up that day not knowing it would be their last. How say? When the final clip ended, the screen went black. We just sat there. Neither of us spoke. Neither of us breathed. I could still hear the hammer strikes in my head, echoing. Finally, my friend whispered, "We have to give this to the police." His face was pale, his hands shaking. He looked like he wanted to rip the USB out and throw it into a fire. We did hand it over. The authorities took it, promised to look into it. But months later, nothing has come of it. No arrests, no answers. Sometimes I wonder who left that USB in the attic. Was it evidence someone meant to hide? A trophy? Or worse, an invitation? My buddy swears he's seen the same truck, late at night, parked near his street. He won't go into his attic anymore. As for me, I dream about the hammer blows. Not just the sound, but the silence that followed when a life was suddenly erased, and the only noise was laughter. The hammerman is still out there, and the thought that someone, somewhere, might be filming his next victim right now is enough to make me wish we'd never pressed play. And, key.
Lena Weiss had just moved into a run-down little house on the edge of Lilienthal, a quiet suburb outside Bremen. The house was old, 2 bedrooms, a cracked porch, and a garden thick with weeds. But after months of searching for somewhere affordable, it felt like a small miracle. Lena was an artist. After a long, painful breakup, all she wanted was a quiet place to paint, a space where silence could help her heal. The house had clearly sat empty for some time. Still, the landlord, a soft-spoken man named Herr Baumann, was polite and discreet. He never mentioned the property's past, and Lena never asked. At first, everything was peaceful. Lena had turned the back room into her studio. The light through the window was soft and quiet, just muted enough to paint the melancholy she carried inside. The first few days passed in calm silence. But then, something changed. It started with a faint sound coming from the walls. At first, she chalked it up to the old wood creaking, or a pipe shifting with the temperature. But each night, the noise returned. A soft scratching, a tapping, a distant clattering, like something feeling its way through the house from within. During the day, Lena told herself it was her imagination. But as darkness settled and the house fell silent, that uncertainty shifted into a quiet, gnawing dread. Something was living in the walls. One rainy night, Lena awoke to the sound of whispering. Not words, just a low rustling, like wind threading its way through brick. But the feeling it left behind was far too human. The next morning, she couldn't ignore it anymore. She gathered her tools and began prying loose the old wooden planks in the back room. Behind them was a crawlspace, narrow, hidden between 2 walls, a place that didn't exist on any of the house's plans. She raised her flashlight and peered inside, and froze. Handprints, big, clear, etched into the dust and soot, dragging, sliding, like someone had clawed, pounded, pulled, desperate to get out. And then, further back, a shape, a figure formed in dust, not quite solid but undeniably human, lying still or waiting. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. The house felt heavier somehow, dense, aware, as if it were watching her. It wasn't just a sound anymore, it was a presence, a weight pressing against her chest. Then the whispers came back, clearer this time. Hilf mir. Lass mich raus. She ran to the front door, but it was locked. The handle was ice cold. And someone, had just touched her shoulder. The next morning, she went to see Herr Baumann. As Lena recounted what had happened, the landlord's expression darkened slightly. Then, in a low voice, he said, "Someone used to live there. A woman, Margareta Schaefer. She lived alone, never left the house. The neighbors reported scratching, crying, but the police never found her body." He hesitated, then added, "They say she buried herself in the walls." On the last night Lena lay awake, the whispers had become moans, low, wet sounds that drifted through the floorboards. And then she saw her, the woman, standing in the corner just beyond the reach of light. She didn't move, sunken eyes, hollow cheeks, skin like wet paper. Her breath smelled of mold. "Ich bin hier. Lass mich raus." The front door creaked open by itself. Lena didn't wait. She ran. She didn't look back. The next morning, she left the house on Schattengasse. She took nothing but her suitcase and her pallet. Herr Baumann said nothing. He simply took the key, as if he'd done it many times before. The house is still there. No one stays for more than a few weeks. They say that at night, if you pass by, you can hear fingernails scratching at the walls, and the curtains, they sway softly, even when there's no wind. Some houses don't want to be empty, and some shadows never leave.